Hey, welcome back to another Scope Creepers podcast. My name is Aramis, and I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'm working. I'm not working. Well, I guess this is kind of my job, which is really cool, and I appreciate that. Today I'm talking to Corey, who I've been partnering with to make a game about a black hole. We'll talk a little bit about this, and we'll also talk about his other game that he helped on with Sockhouse here called Click and Conquer. There'll be links down in the description below for you to go check out those games. And finally, there's a link to go, and if you enjoy listening to Corey chat about business game dev stuff, you can get a free consultation with him to kind of walk through your game and ideas, and maybe he can help you out find a way to navigate forward to a path to profitability yourself. This is a data heavy podcast in a good way. I tried to make it accessible as far as asking questions and kind of poking holes in the data or the graphs. And we didn't always line up on kind of the data that was presented, which I think ultimately makes an interesting conversation. Coming from someone who's really data driven like Corey, to myself, who I guess throughout my career, I've become a little bit more feelings and vibey as opposed to maybe the data side, which is why I think so far it's been nice to work with him on a game about a black hole. And this is a cool conversation. This is the second time Corey's been on the podcast. The first one was with Sockhouse, where they did talk about Click and Conquer in much more detail. So if you want to listen to that conversation first, you can go back, I think it was like a couple months ago, in the feed over on YouTube or Spotify, listen to the episode, and then continue on with this one. But without further ado, let's dive into it and learn more about how we can make our games slightly like 1% better in all these categories to maybe, hopefully, make that game that can be a success financially for us, or just even reach many more players than we ever thought we could. Let's get into it. So where I wanted to start is, you said you were nervous for this podcast. You've been on Scope Creepers before. This time you're coming to me with some data, and we've been working together on a game about a black hole. What makes you so nervous to chat today?
I am the only other guest aside from Thomas that has been on more than once, so I feel like there's pressure on. The nervousness is, I haven't shared this anywhere. It's just a theory. I have some data, I think, to nudge people towards that theory being correct. And I feel like it goes against some of the other key industry, like, you just need 7,000 wish list. You just need to make a good game. And while those are both important, I think there's this third dimension that's not really talked about. And we'll see. We'll see. You can hear the nervousness.
I can't. You feel distinctly different than when we talk about a game of black hole or anything else. And so it's a very interesting vibe to feel, which means I need to try to break the ice a little bit down so we can feel a little bit more comfortable here, which maybe I'll try to do myself. So, well, do you want to dive in? Do you want to start? Is there something else you want to, like, that we need to prep before we kind of dive in? Is there other information or understanding that you want to set up before we kind of
Sure.
look at the graphs and the data and stuff like that?
So I guess I can give some backstory to how this started. It was a total accident. I had somebody reach out with a game, asked to do a 30-minute call with me about why their game didn't really succeed. And to be quite honest, I had no real good indication. And, I looked through everything, and it was like an hour before the call, and just something hit me. I was like, you know what? I wonder what their first 72 hours of their game looks like compared to Click and Conquer, which was a game that I was involved with, that had done very well. And 72 hours was the sweet spot because Click and Conquer didn't actually have any YouTube coverage, no external coverage. We had subjectively modest wish lists, like we had less than 3,000 wish lists when we launched.
Sure.
So I kind of was in this isolated bubble, and I'm like, well, clearly this other game I was comparing that had like 10,000 wish lists, a really polished page. Like, I thought the trailer was all right. The pricing was like $5 USD, so that wasn't concern. They even had a really good publisher behind them. So I couldn't find anything. And then once I looked at the first 72 hours, I was like, oh, whoa, this is way different than I expected. And that's kind of how we got onto me digging through a bunch of different games now and have spotted similar things. So
even with a bunch of different things behind it, as far as a market forces and kind of the quote unquote doing Steam correctly, their first what 72 hours? Is it like 3 days? First 3 days were very lackluster, especially in comparison with the games you're more familiar with, as far as like seeing the data and having experienced, obviously, the first 72 hours of Click and Conquer.
The big hook, I would say, for yourself and those who are listening, is it wasn't just a minor difference. We're talking about they did like 100 less sales in those 72 hours, even though they came in with like 3 times the amount of Wishlist, and all the other data I could find puts them like pretty even.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big shocker, seeing like this 3,000 units sold versus like, whatever it was, 35. I have it somewhere on the Excel sheet, and it's like, whoa, like this is not what I expected, especially when you consider the game we are comparing to, Click and Conquer. It didn't have external forces that propped it up. Again, there was no YouTube, there was no major content creator wave. We didn't have a big brand. We had, again, 1/4 the wish list compared to this other game. Even the capsule we didn't feel like was like stunning. There was no single thing you could point to that was like, oh, the artwork carried the game, or the pricing. The pricing was similar on both of these games. So regardless, I dug into this and got a bunch of stuff, and I guess that's a good spot to start sharing and looking at this.
So with Click and Conquer, there was no YouTube coverage in the first 72 hours?
There was 2 videos, but they were like sub 500 subscribers and like 100, 200 views on those videos. So nothing that would actually really move it.
Yeah.
Everything else came after something around 90 hours, or give or take.
Wow.
So
that's a bit surprising, because in not paying attention to when it came out, like I first saw it from someone playing it on YouTube. I think either like Retromation or Wanderbots or somebody, or maybe Orbital Potato played it. And I was like, oh, interesting. What's that? And like, then happened to be talking to you about it and stuff like that. So, okay. That's a very interesting place to begin. As a good setup and good like understanding of how you found this. It's interesting that it's anecdotal data that you then went and like confirmed by looking at larger swaths of data out there.
Yeah, I mean, having the opportunity to work with other devs have definitely given me a lot of insight, because it's different genres, different price points, different games that come in with a ton of wish lists, games that don't come in with a ton of wish lists, games that hit the popular up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I expected this to look very different than actually what this does. And it actually looked, I don't know if worse is the correct word, but it was like, oh, a lot more of these games are on equal footing than I could ever have guessed, to be honest. And, I think if you can nail this middle spot, this, what I'm calling this conversion gap, because marketing is driving people in, right? Mm-hmm. We always talk about get more wish lists, market your game, get on Reddit, make the post, get your demo, get more wish lists. And then there's the actual make good game, when someone buys your game and essentially they don't refund.
Yeah.
But this in between of converting someone on seeing your game to buying, or wish listing and then being willing to buy the game at that price point,
mm-hmm.
I haven't seen an enormous amount of people chat about this yet. I think this is like the key thing that can fundamentally change whether an indie is going to be quote unquote successful, financially at least, or not. And it's funny from my perspective, in the sense of you're told that make good game
mm-hmm.
and just market. But actually this is more like, even if you market bad, it doesn't actually mean it's going to convert well. And even if you make a good game, it's not going to matter if nobody buys said game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like this is this like overpowered middle tier that no one's talking about, that can really pull up the sales numbers of these games. So
yeah, from my own experience, I know that this is the place that I need to play in. And like, I had pretty bad conversions for Hexagod. I think I got pretty lucky with Chess Survivors, and far as like getting an idea that's clickable and like convertible, and having an artist who's far better than I deserved for the price I paid him to make my Steam capsule artwork for Chess Survivors. But it's like, this is where I need to grow as a developer, is that business minded side of like, yeah, people then come and I can get I've like used YouTube to learn how to get people to see my stuff wishlist it to get at least enough to like get that ball rolling. And then now it's like that next step of how do I get that from conversion, how do I get that from seeing it to converting into sales is something that is going to be probably the next 5,000 hours of my work. And so I would just preface this conversation by saying like, also still go learn how to make a good game and learn how to make games. And like, if you're going to listen to this conversation and leave it feeling really overwhelmed and stuff like that, know that it's okay to also just kind of back up and say, right now I need to figure out how to get a game on Steam. Like, this stuff's probably, I'm assuming, is going to feel like a lot. And it's probably going to feel like a lot for me to try to be like, well, how do I do some of these things? Because that's not an easy question to answer. And it's not easy to make a game. And so if this feels like a lot, pin this, know that you can come back to this later in this conversation, understanding, and that it's okay to kind of sit back and just say, I'm going to focus on trying to get a game on Steam and get it released. Because that is not an easy feat to do in itself. And if you get overwhelmed in thinking about all this stuff for too long, then all of a sudden it doesn't even matter because you don't even get a game released, right?
Yep.
That being said, I'm really interested in this because I think this is something that's why I'm working with you too on a game about a black hole. Is like, you have experience, you have thoughts, you have business development mindset, and that's something that I'm learning a ton from already as we've only, I think it's been about a month or so right now. So anything else before we dive into the presentation and all the data?
Nope, just repeat exactly what you said. It's like a radar graph.
Yeah.
And like, you can be 100% on one skill and really carry your game far, but ideally you'd be 100% on all. That doesn't mean you have to be.
Yeah.
That would be the most ideal. I've seen games that are tremendously great on the artwork, but the core game loop is actually, in my opinion, not that fun. But that has carried those developers to a very successful game.
Yeah.
I'm just giving one more thing to help try and round out that, or pull up or pull out, depending on which way you want to look at it, on each of your radar charts. So it's like, okay, you built a good game, you got decent marketing. Okay, there's also this other area that maybe you can min-max a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have to do everything. I mean, the ideals.
Like game development is all about like, if you have like 50 skills, if you can increase some of those little skills by 1 to 2 points, all of a sudden, and this kind of came forward with the podcast with you and Sock talking about kind of those percentages, but like those 1 and 2 points feel like, as you add it up across all of it, might be enough to like overcome some of these hurdles. And like going from a 90 to 100 is an exponential increase. I think
exactly.
In a lot of these skills, very much like a Path of Exile EXP chart. You're halfway to 100 when you get to like 98 and a half or something, is like halfway to actually getting your XP to 100. So it's probably something more like that, where at the later portion of it, you're chasing this experience that needs more and more and more. But each little tick up in those categories will have oversized impact on the results.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll share it and let's see.
Let's dive in. I'm excited.
All right.
So we're going to have a bunch of graphs showing here. Future me is going to try to edit this so we can see it well. So if you want to like be flipping back and forth just to see the graphs and stuff like that, that could help you understand it. Otherwise, I'll be asking questions and we'll be kind of working our way through the data. So if you're also just listening to it on a long walk, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, you're so nice. I'm like, no, you have to watch the VOD. You need to subscribe. Scope Creepers, YouTube.
Hey, there you go. You heard Corey. You gotta subscribe.
Okay, so I'll just dive into it. So this is just the context, like, and that's a Click and Conquer is the game. I'm just saying it's the game that I had a baseline to work with and just happened to be in this unique spot where for the first 72 hours had no content coverage, no post-marketing plan. We weren't on the popular upcoming. We didn't even have bundles set up for those on launch. And it was like 2,800 wish lists. So what I did was I plotted out sales and visits, with sales being on Y and visits being on X. And I just got this from the Steam portal. Y visits, because the impression just simply means you saw a capsule, you saw the artwork, doesn't mean you actually went to the store page. Sure. A visit means you actually went to the store page. So now we're getting to conversion. Did you click add to wish list or did you buy? So, and then I just plot like where, based off of Click and Conquer, the sales and visits would show up with a trend conversion line. And if I want something like this game, any game you see that the game name is listed, the creator has given permission to show the data. If you see game A, B, or C, that means the creator has given permission for the data, but would prefer the game to not be displayed. Again, trying to respect what people want and getting all the data. So Sockhouse, who did Click and Conquer as well, had a game with Barricade, and you say, okay, it had 2,800 reviews. It had less than 2,800 wish lists, less than 10 reviews, and it actually had 6,000 visits. So, for me, I'm like, I don't know, 6,000 somewhere like in here. I'd plot it in here. But actually, it shows like way below the trend line. For comparison to Click and Conquer.
Yeah.
And you might think, okay, it's a game that didn't have the reviews. It's a different genre than Click and Conquer, which was a clicker incremental, and Barricade's like this boomer shooter game. So, okay, disregard that, right?
Sure.
Okay. So then I come back and I'm like, hey, what about this Farm Boy game? It's an automation farming game. It had way more wish lists. It actually was on the popular up and coming.
Wow.
It had 9,000 visits to its store. So again, like we're expecting way up here in the top right when we're looking at where 9,000 would show up on the graphs, and we end up way below. We actually end up below what Click and Conquer did with almost half of the visits to the store. So these are the two outliers, the very left outlier and the very right outlier on the graph.
Okay.
So where's everything else kind of fall? So it ends up this. I know the graph is a little messy. We'll zoom in on one of the slides. But you can actually see in the graph that once you remove your left and right outliers, you end up with this bucket of games that almost pool all very close to each other.
Yeah.
Which is, again, very surprising. Like, I had to quadruple check this because I'm like, really? You'll actually see Aramis's games kind of in there. There's another slide that will better show that so the titles aren't on top of each other. But like, Chess Survivor somewhere in here, Hexagod somewhere in here. We have games of very different stuff. We have an action RPG game in here. Surf Up is a free-to-play game. We have a roguelike game as one of the, I think it's game C. Game B is like a cute, cozy game. Like, I tried to get as diverse as possible, but even then, we end up with this bucketing. Our pricing is even different. We have games that go up to $20 US in here, and games as low as like $350 USD in here. But again, we end up with this like big bucket in here. And just to reiterate, this is the first launch plus 72 hours approximately, because I can't do exact hours. But you can also see they're really on equal footing. Like, once I remove Farm Boy, which is skewed because of popular up and coming, and Barricade because it didn't even get 10 reviews in this first 72 hours, you actually see this pooling between, let's say, 4,000 visits and 40,000 and 60,000 visits. So that's the start of the data. I mean, I thought already just looking at this, like, really? Because listeners and yourself don't even realize that we have huge ranges of even wish list here. We have games in here in that pool that are like 800 wish lists, and we have games in here with 11,000 wish list. They're so very close to each other that it's kind of shocking, like very shocking to me.
That the wish list, when you're looking at sales to visits, doesn't seem to have all that big of an impact given this sampling.
Yeah, when I look through it, and I have a table at the end of the slides that shows it in a table format.
Yeah.
A lot of this is actually just discovery queue. Like, usually the game is more than 50% discovery queue in the first 72 hours. There are a couple outliers, like Farm Boy on the very right, which is popular up and coming, would skew the traffic they get. And one of the games in this pool had some somewhat substantial YouTube coverage. So discovery queue is obviously less percentage of the overall traffic. But yeah, and even the wish list conversions are different in here. You have games that have like 10% wish list conversion for 72. You have games upwards of 30% in here.
Yeah. That's
but
shocking.
yeah, they pool very, very kind of close in the grand scheme of things. I really expected all this dots to be closer on towards the trending line here, or more scattered even. Yeah.
It would be interesting to see this graph with other games that are in line with like Click and Conquer type sales.
Yeah, it could just be that. I don't think there's no other incremental game in here. But even then, it's hard to do a direct comparison always.
Yeah.
Because then we get into like, did you have bundles? Did you not have bundles? But it was just, to me, just surprising that there's a pool of the other genres, which are not all the same. So I would have expected more spread, because it's like, oh, maybe the incremental genre is just really broken in sales. Okay. But then I would expect something like an FPS to be, I don't know, more to the left, and like a cozy casual game more to the right.
Yeah.
It's a small sample size, so maybe I just happen to pick the ones that don't convey that very well.
I'd be curious to see this graph also just like wish list versus visits and wish list versus sales, to see those other three views, just to see what they all kind of pop out to be. Because there's another way where you can present this data and you show the average, and then you see how far above Click and Conquer is compared to those things.
Yeah, so I have a table at the end that will actually list out all the data, including wish list.
Yeah.
So then it would technically be possible to do like a visit to wish list weighted thing. But like right off the bat, I can say like game B. Yeah, game B or C. It really doesn't matter on the graph, but one of these has literally 11,000 wish lists compared to Click and Conquer. So 4x the wish list yet. Now you could say maybe it's a combination of wish list, genre, and other factors. Yes, I get that. I just thought it was very interesting doing this and seeing this pooling, and I have some theories. So, so I did plot this out on like actual versus expected. If you use Click and Conquer as a baseline for the visits and what their sales end up being. I should probably just close Discord, but and you end up with a graph that just shows like just how far away they are. And I plot in this black line that's like a 40% error margin, and aside from Farm Boy that had the popular up and coming, like they're just so far from what you would expect. And you make a good point. Like maybe it's just incremental clicker games just do very, very well in sales right now. But I thought one of these cute and cozy games was going to be like, oh my goodness, like skyrocket. And I was so shocked when they came in with game B 35 sales. I'm like, what? You have a decent trailer, you have a great capsule, the description's fantastic. And I think, as we go through this, I think I have a story for each one of them to explain why they didn't get where they should have been.
Yeah.
So
like Chess Survivors came out the same year Vampire Survivors blew up. In fact, it was what 8 to 9 months after kind of the big wave of Vampire Survivors blowing up and 20 Minutes Till Dawn. And so it's like, I would say it was well within still. I mean, you also have data for that genre potentially to see it, but like I would say it felt like it was still within the wave, and looking back within the wave of those Survivor likes, still kind of cresting in a way. And it was a novel take in that genre, and so it'll be interesting to see in the long run where that goes, because it is disappointing to see how big of a difference both Chess Survivors and Hexagod could have been given the data and like kind of expected ranges relative to what Click and Conquer did.
Because the big thing I think to remind in listing here, because it's easy to miss, is this is before the player has played the game.
Yeah.
right? This is simply what you've presented and communicated to the purchaser, the buyer, the potential buyer, the user, about whether or not they should click the buy button or not. And I think that's a big thing because, it's easy to get stuck and say like, oh, X game doesn't have a great mechanic, or X game wasn't as polished as it could have been. But then it's like, did you present it in that way that showed and highlighted it wasn't unpolished? Because that probably would have hurt your sales. Talking about like Chess Survivor, I think the game might have actually did better without showing some of the UI, because I think some of the UI is the least polished in the game. And I think that might have hurt some of the sales in the sense of like, it doesn't feel as a high caliber game as some other games. Now, I'm not saying defraud the users, guys. I'm not saying go hide your UI when it's terrible and try and convince them that your game's going to be this glorious cinematic thing. I'm just saying, like, if you have a strong game mechanic, but then you're conveying this state of the game that maybe doesn't represent that or is more unpolished than another, like that radar, like you have weak UI. What's happening, I think, for some of these games that people see that and they infer low quality, not going to be great, polished, fun game, and then they just bounce. And that hurts on the sales. Because I didn't go this far, but you can go a step further and say what was purchased, and then what were the refund rates to get a better idea about was game not fun, was there a core game mechanic difference? This is even before that. This is just simply, can you convert on your store page or not? So, we're way off. You look at the median difference and the median average is like we're 84% off of where kind of we would expect to be. Not that it is that shocking, I guess, when you see the graph, but to me it still was. It still was like, are you sure? Like, triple check the table. Like, really? There's this big of a gap? Like, I expected something like 20, maybe 50%. But once we start getting to like these extreme, almost 90% difference, it's like, okay, that screams to me that some of these games on their store are clearly not doing things that maybe a buyer would expect or want, or there's a disconnect from the quality to the purchase price. And again, this is before they've actually played your game. So this is just a presentation of what you're presenting. Obviously, your mechanic is being presented to them, yes.
Yeah.
But you control that presentation. Like the pacing on the trailer can be a little bit different than the game.
Sure.
So
I feel like this isn't where my brain goes is I want to see this with the average of all the games. I know you're using Click and Conquer as a baseline to present what a game does, but I'm also like, this could be showing comparing all these games versus one game that was maybe overly successful given its preconditions. And so it's something that I'm like, I want to see it with the averages against all of these. So then I want to see both, right? I want to see this and then, okay, versus each other, how do these games line up given that if you could average out all of these, okay, how did they perform amongst the whole group? Which you can kind of see and tease out from the data, but like...
within the bubble, they're doing fine. But the thing is like, and why, I guess, fortunate enough with Click and Conquer was it doesn't have a very special thing. The only thing you could point to is maybe it was a trend and the genre, and that was it. It is not like it had this external force of, oh my goodness, Real Civil Engineer covered it in the first 72 hours and everyone followed it, or it had 25,000 wish lists, or it hit popular up and coming, or the popular recently released. So I think there's something there to consider on the games that, in their own isolated bubble there, as we saw in the graph, where they pulled together, they're doing fine against each other. But I want to know, why are they not going up? And if the answer is just, it's incremental clicker, then I'm like, man, we should be building more incremental clickers.
Oh my gosh, what are we doing for our next game?
But I've also seen, other incremental clickers not do as well either.
Yeah.
Like they may maybe do better than that pooling of other games, but they're not necessarily hitting this click and conquer feat, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And the big thing is, it's not like, oh, you picked a trending genre and therefore you got more visits. And that's why. It's actually like, no. Like, Steam puts you on a pretty good equal footing for the visits that you get across the board, almost regardless. I can't talk about further than, like, let's say 15,000 wish lists. Like, all the games in here are like sub 15,000 wish lists. Sure. So maybe there's some signal once you hit 20,000 that it drives even more visits, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Black box, who knows? But here I think I'm talking to a large audience of indies listening that are probably in that is somewhere sub 15,000 wish list. And it's, I don't know, relieving to me on some extent that, like, wow, I'm got the same chance as kind of everyone else. And it's just a question of, can I convert those visits over to purchases or wish list? And of course you can look further. Like, I didn't include how much those games made, and maybe the graphs look slightly different because yes, they sold less, but they were charging 4 or 5 times the amount. So maybe they actually netted out more money. Sure. But then it's hard because then you have to factor in the refunds too. You have to factor out what time period, and like, again, I just picked 72 hours because Click and Conquer didn't have any coverage in that time period. So
my gut says that Click and Conquer is presented in a way where you can understand exactly what the game is within 5 seconds of seeing the page. Like, watching streamers after Next Fest or before Next Fest and stuff like that go through on their stream and say, what games do you want me to play? Like, I was watching Soda Poppin' once, and he walked through and he had his mods or his community said, here's 50 games we want you to play. He's kept clicking on the links, and it was this instantaneous, oh, it's like this but that, oh, it's this, yes, no. And like, these things, these guttural kind of gut feelings were so immediate that he was just filtering stuff out so quickly. So you could see it on his face. It was instant reaction. And like, I think Click and Conquer has a really good name. It says exactly what the game is going to be, right? You click something and then something happens, and then you see the page and it's the trailers. You click something and a bomb drops and blows up, and like, that is less than 3 seconds, and you could say, "Oh, it looks kind of fun. I want to click a thing and drop a bomb."
The nice thing though is, I think all or nearly all other types of games should and can do similar. Like, you should be able to communicate out your core loop and what the game is about to your user in these like sub 6 seconds kind of shenanigans. And if you're not, and maybe it's just more obvious with a clicker game because there's less mechanics and therefore you can only just show that, and just makes it easier for people to produce those sorts of trailers. But I don't disagree exactly with what you're saying. Yeah. I think there is truth to that. It's like, that game had a very good refined, this is literally what you're getting. And I think that converts well with users. Now, one of the stories we could talk about out of these charts is Game B, that does 35 sales, is a game. It's let's call it a buildy, cozy, casual game. The price point is, I think, fair for what it was. It was like $5. The capsule looked actually quite intriguing, and they had nice GIFs on their page. I think the description made sense. I'm biased to what I think in this.
Sure.
But one of the things I did notice in that game was, yes, the game was tagged quote unquote correctly to what was in the game. But if you scrolled down and you looked at games similar to this, they were super hardcore strategy builder games. Like, let's say like Factorio and RimWorld. And this is a cute casual game. And those are not, there's probably some player overlap, yes, but I think those are divided players mostly. And my theory there is, okay, well, where does Steam get the initial audience for discovery queue? Like, I don't know. It's, again, a black box. I would use my experience in the ad space to say, well, they probably seed off of games that they think are similar to this game.
Yes, and Steam's algorithm is not going in and playing all those Steam games, like playing the game and saying, well, this one feels a lot like this game. It's like, it's the data we tell it.
So with that said, it's like, well, yeah, of course you did less sales if you have the same amount of visits as the other game, but you drove the audience or Steam gave you the audience that's like hardcore Factorio players, and you're like, ooh, look, it's like this little cute, cozy, like casual game you lay back. They probably don't convert. So I think that's actually what honestly killed Game B, because everything else was spot on. I couldn't find anything else, at least. Conversion's important, I guess is the point. Is like that page is more valuable than you ever would imagine.
Yeah. One of the things I have done, and I think I did with both my games, is like go and find my target like 3 comps, basically thinking of like selling a house too. Like go find the comparables and look at what they're doing and use that as like your market force to say, okay, you can literally pull and grab all of their tags and put it in a spreadsheet and say which ones are common and which ones are ranked higher, and then go into that and say, my game is like these 3 games. I want my tags to be like those 3 games, and then I want to make sure that in the little widget that they pop up and they're like closer to the top, just so you can try to lean into, like you just said there. Like I feel like that's a little trick to try to like. There's thousands of tags. There's so many tags out there that you can put on your game, and so trying to like figure out which 20 to use is not easy. And even if you figure out there are 20, which order to put them in is also not easy. I would highly recommend not using the suggestion thing from Steam.
I would say to not put the tags necessarily you believe your game should be, and to spend the time trying to engineer what the tags that produce games similar to what you agree with.
Yeah.
So if you put in tag ABC and you get similar games as the games you agree with, then great. If even though you might say like, oh, but I think it's more city builder, that tag should be higher, and then all of a sudden Factorio shows up, and you're like, whoa, no, none of my players are probably really good to play that game. That's not. I wouldn't recommend playing this game and then tell them go play Factorio.
Yeah.
So yeah, games B in that case, that story behind it, and why I think there was such a gap was, I think the tagging was just incorrect, and their discovery queue, even though they got the same amount of visits, the audience just did not resonate with the game.
Sure.
And obviously did not buy, and like I said, that game particularly is 3-4 times the amount of Wishlist. And actually did have some 4,000 to 5,000 view coverage in those first 72 hours. So, what else did I put here? Let's see. Oh, I just zoomed in, so it was easier to see the grouping. And I was saying each has their own reason, and kind of explaining it here. On one of them, it was like, okay, game B is that. Barricade's obvious because it didn't have the 10 reviews. So this is why it's so much lower.
Yeah.
Surf's Up is go ahead.
Getting the 10 reviews, for those who don't know, that gets you into the discovery queue to basically like that's one of the initial algorithms that kicks in, right? And like Steam has said, but I think they've said before, like no, it's not 10 reviews, but like everyone's like we're almost positive as a community it's 10 reviews is like kind of where that kicks in. Is that correct?
It is, but it will actually get some minor traffic even without the 10.
Sure.
It's just like, I guess that's where the weight is
like an
heaviest.
inflection point.
Yeah. That, okay, instead of you getting 5% of X, all of a sudden you're getting like 80% of said X. And again, where are they getting the traffic from? Black box, but I have this suspicion.
My cat just knocked something off of a shelf.
I have the suspicion that it is trying to use the seed audience of games similar to yours. And if those don't match, you're not going to convert. And then what that does is it incentivizes that discovery queue to send less and less because it's not converting. And then you just have this giant drop and lose the traffic, which long tail would hurt you even more.
Yeah.
But not in 72 hours.
Absolutely.
We chatted about Chess Survivor. My 2 cents there was just, I think, like some of the UI stuff maybe isn't most appealing to people seeing it.
Sure.
I think Indie Clinic covered Hexagod on your side. So I don't know if you want to chime in on their 2 cents of what they thought about the game.
I think the biggest problem with Hexagod is that it's unclear what the gameplay is.
Yeah, I was going to say like conflicting systems. Like I think they nailed it when they had mentioned you present like a cute, cozy, casual game, and then you get in and you're like, wow, this is a real like strategy game with tons of UI, and it's like, okay, not what I expected.
Yeah.
And I think like you can get that even in the trailer and the screenshots.
Yeah. I think the mechanics though are outside of any of that this sort of conversation, is because that is like what is presented to the player is not necessarily what are they like actually playing the game. And like there's problems in the gameplay absolutely that Indie Clinic talked about, but it's like from a marketing standpoint, I think it's just you come to the page in 5 seconds and you don't know what you're gonna like. What am I doing in the game? Like, you know, like there's some hexagons, cool, and it's bright colored and stuff like that, and that all informs a lot of these decisions. But I think it's something that I'm like, yeah, I really failed at making a game that's clear what you're going to be doing, I suppose.
Surf's Up is a free-to-play game.
Mm-hmm.
So it has like 80,000 units. So it actually beats Click and Conquer on units, but it does free-to-play, so that there's no friction. So I looked at their DLC supporter pack, and that's how we got the sales. And I think the story there is like less about their store page bad. It's actually more a story about like converting free players to paid users is a whole other beast.
Yeah.
Especially because once you've gone to the page and you've downloaded it, you've left the page. You've actually converted it, yes, but you convert it as a free user. So now the difference is like, how do I convert you to a paid user? How do I get you back to the page? And I think that's even harder.
Yeah. Because this was a cosmetic pack, right? It's not like Trackmania where you can buy a sub and then because you have the sub, you get access to also cosmetics in that game, right? But then there's like the big cup of the day thing, which is a daily tournament you can access because you are a paid subscriber, and that's a way to get yourself into that.
It's cosmetic, but I think there is functionality, but you don't need it to play the game.
Yeah.
I think it's like private lobbies is unlocked,
Sure.
but you could play the game solo.
Sure.
And then it's like how many players actually want to play together, yada yada.
It's an interesting problem.
Game C is it looked to be like a pricing issue. The game doesn't describe what it is at all. I'll say it's a roguelite platformer-ish game, and you would never get it from the title. It's like calling a game like, I don't know, The Land of Quarry, and you're like, what is that game? I have no idea. Like, it doesn't describe anything about it. You would never even guess. Even the capsule art itself, there's zero way to even guess that it's going to be this roguelite platformer in any shape or form.
Sure.
Game A was in early access and then full. And the big story there is they just had a pricing issue. Yeah, I could see it in the refund data. It was just complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint of game too expensive, would never pay this for this type of game. It's an action RPG game. And let's say it's like $20. And yes, there are $20 action RPG games. But it's like if you even ask the creator, is your quality and time playable like even half of these other? And it's like, no. And it's like, well, but you're charging like same price almost as those.
Last Epoch is a $30 game to buy, and it is a very, very full and fun RPG game.
So all different stories. And like, some is pricing, some is, I think, screenshots, some I think is tags. I mean, the trailers are subjective and like how much you think they could have better conveyed the game. But I basically just, this is from the last time I was on the podcast. I took this slide which talks about like, hey, if you want algo success on Steam, it's like the shortest amount of time and the largest amount of impact. And like the things you can do are, yes, market your game. Yes, build a good game. But this middle gap is like, look at your pricing, look at your store, look at like what you can piggyback on the trends. Can you convey it in your trailer? Can you have a good value to pricing? I mean, let me ask you this. A game of a black hole, like, you're hearing this. What are you thinking about the game of a black hole that we could do differently on the store?
That we can do differently on the store.
Like, given this information, is there anything that you're now considering?
I haven't put too much thought and time into the store page. That was going to be tomorrow's task, or maybe this afternoon's task, to start kind of fiddling through all that stuff for the demo launch. I mean, the premise of a game about a black hole back when I came up with the idea in March or April was like, make a game that has that 5 seconds of understanding what the gameplay is. Like, I failed with that in Hexagod. Let's make a game, or at that point it was just me, but I wanted to make a game that was just like, this game knows what it, like, people can know what it is very quickly and decide, yes, I'm interested, no, I'm not interested. And so a lot of everything has been around that, even from like the art style, I guess, is something that's like, I want this game to be very quickly understood. And that lends itself to hopefully having something that pops a little bit harder to see what it is. So, I don't know. Does anything come to mind when you're thinking through these things and looking at a game about a black hole? Because I think it's a very interesting question.
I think, we talked about even changing the name to, I think it was Feed the Black Hole or Feeding the Black Hole, something around feeding it.
I was thinking of a game about feeding a black hole.
Exactly. I think that is already a win on building these. It describes exactly kind of what you're doing in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. My goal is to put things in the black hole. Okay. We talked about pricing. I think pricing is going to be within the range of what the market's willing to pay for this sort of like incremental game. I think it will be comparable to the art style of other games in that price range too. I think the tags, we will just do exactly what we were saying, is like not what we think necessarily the tags should be. It's like what gets the tags to the games that we know are going to be similar and the player base would be of. We have inspiration from Keep on Mining. Well, if we can get it to show up, that's probably actually good.
Yeah.
Node Buster, another kind of this hover destroy game.
Yeah.
Any other games that we use as, I used as inspiration at least.
Yeah.
If they show up, they're great. I don't look at it as competition. Like, but if they've already played that, they won't play this game.
It's also not how incremental games work, right? It's like we get this nice thing where, like, at least I, as a player, I play one and I'll play another. Like, I'll play another one with a similar mechanic because the novelty will be different.
I think I see that with like these crafty building games too, and I think that's one of the reasons why they do so well on Steam.
Yeah,
is like I've played Factorio. I've played, like, in my opinion, the like building game. Yeah, I still go play Banish. I still play Beaverton or Beavertown, whatever the one with Timberborn. Yes,
Beaverton.
Thank you.
Is that what you named your town in?
Yeah.
Timberborn.
And I initially was hesitant in buying that game because I thought, like, how much more can you improve? Oh, I have RimWorld too. Like, how much more can you really improve? And then I sunk 50 hours in the game.
Yeah.
So I don't look at it as disadvantage. It's just watching Chris D's How to Market a Game VOD. He had a part of one of his courses, or it was on his YouTube, where he records people buying games on the store page. And one of the first things I noticed when watching this is how quick people make the statement, oh, it's like X, but Y different.
Yeah.
We're like hardwired for pattern recognition. We're very good at this. And I think doing that as part of the page is actually important. Like, yes, I want games to show up that are actually like, oh, it's like this, but a little bit different, or that's the different mechanic, or the art style is different.
Yeah, I think in nature, there's like mimicry with animals that they're not poisonous themselves to eat, but through natural selection, they will mimic other animals that are poisonous to eat.
Smart.
Or the opposite. If they want, say it's like a fruit that wants to be eaten, it'll mimic other things that want to be eaten, X, Y, and Z. And I think that's something that I've noticed myself getting in my way with, and like other people I've talked to during game dev coaching sessions is like, we keep getting in our way of trying to do something unique and different. So you look at making a trailer and you're like, how do I make a trailer? Look at the games that you're targeting. What communication styles? Literally, you could take the format. Okay, I'm doing a survivor style game. Your first few screenshots need to be 3 or 4 different 1 to 2 second clips of people doing crazy builds. Hook me in, show me the crazy stuff I can do, and then like pop up on the screen with some text. And then the next one is, where do I start then? And then show me quickly progressing to another crazy build at the end, right? Like, that's a formula. There's hundreds of those games out there. Copy that formula, and then like be able to showcase, plug in your clips into that.
I don't think I ever told you necessarily how we went around Click and Conquer's trailer, but we just looked to YouTube. Like, every advice you have for YouTube, for like the first 30 seconds matter for YouTube, what's your hook, all that, what's like the framing, what are you trying to convey? We just took all the lessons from that. It was like, we're not making a trailer, we're just making a really short YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to close the audience to get them engaged in first, 5 seconds, and then longer 30 seconds, let's say. And that was it. Because, if you try and go Google around for like how to make Steam trailer, like, I feel like you get less in-depth advice than how to make a YouTube video and what is all the possible things to do there.
Yeah.
And I feel like the quality is very, very polished on those, because you have content creators that have a very refined playbook and have done it way longer. And it's like, okay, take all those lessons, apply. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, even if you watch Click and Conquer's trailer, it's like, the reason why we change out the clips every like 5 seconds is because the really successful YouTube videos we've seen, they never stay on the same screen for more than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's literally what we did. It's like, okay, we need a transition, like some sort of like J cut over somewhere every 5 seconds, which is good because it keeps the video down and condensed and short and to the point too.
Yeah. I think it's one of the biggest benefits of having made YouTube videos for 3 years is that it's just like, I have a better intuition for like that sort of kind of editing, I suppose. I think I did good with Chess Survivors, absolutely horrible with Hexagod, but I'm excited about a game about a black hole, and like the polish for the electric effect that we added in and the radiation one, like even just electric alone is something I'm like, cool, that is really, really easily marketable. I think like to show as an opening shot, you breaking one and then the chain lightning kind of going out and breaking a bunch of stuff is a very like pleasing thing to be able to see. And so it's exciting to get to some things that I'm like, this will look really nice in a trailer.
Even on the trailer, like, I guess one of the things I could say about this is maybe even before building a game, think about the page before it. Like, what would the page look like before you built the game? It's like, well, I need to highlight a GIF around this mechanic. Okay, but how is that mechanic going to look a way that actually captures people's attention? Mm-hmm. How's your trailer going to look to make sure that the audience is engaged in it? It's almost kind of like the advice I heard on the YouTube side is like, design your title and thumbnail before you even make your video. And similar, I don't know how great the advice is, but I'm not a YouTuber, but I've heard this enough that it sounds good. On the how to a game about a black hole, it's like you can have a scenario where it's like you show the end state, just how powerful you get, and the game beats, it becomes a big black hole, and then it transitions right to the small shrink down, here's where you begin. Because then they get a sense of like, oh my goodness, the game's broken. Like, that's what I got, that's the power I will have. And then you show them, this is where you begin. And like I would cut right over to here's the skill tree. Oh my goodness. Like it's like on Keep on Mining. When you see how big the skill tree is, you're like, whoa, there's so much to do. Same thing for ours. Anyways, I don't think I had anything else. These were just this is a good spot of anyone else who want to play around with the numbers. If they want to say sales to visits or impressions to sales or the percentage of the discovery queue or how many wish lists or weight them differently, it's all here. And like I said, I just saw this pooling and thought it was interested and just kind of wanted to highlight that, you know what, can do great marketing and have nobody convert. You can build a great game and no one will actually buy it. And if you don't nail the conversion in the best ways you can with the tools you can, because like obviously like you're at the mercy of like the audience that gets driven to you. Yes, but we do have little levers like, oh, if I tag right, maybe I'll get that type of audience. If I get the similar games that I really want, maybe that will drive a better audience. Then yeah, like I just think people put it in and they spend an enormous amount of time maybe on the trailer, but not necessarily everything else too. So
it is something that it is everything. It's kind of like to make a game feel good, it's not one thing. Like I think we often, at least I'll speak for myself, I often think that, oh, one thing makes the game good. And it's something that over the past 5,000 hours of making games, I figured out that's like, oh no, it's hundreds, not thousands of small little decisions that add up together to this effect. Hovering button noises, the button animation slightly, the timing of a transition, the amount of screen shake or lack thereof of screen shake, the shaders you put here and there, the colors you palette, like the list goes on and on of all these small little decisions you're making to add up to be the game. And the same seems to be true, at least that's what this is pointing at, is like just because you have a ton of wish lists doesn't necessarily mean you have success. It is easy to boil it down to that and saying that, yes, wish lists are important, they are helpful, and there's all these other things that we also need to be trying to do correct or optimally to try to get all the levers there. And as we saw with some of these games and stories you pointed out, sometimes missing one lever can completely tank a game that otherwise looked like it could have been better.
Yeah. I mean, any number times 0 is still 0.
Yeah.
Like if you truly tank on one of these really bad, yes, it can fundamentally hurt the game as a whole. But equally, if you just meet the min on the others, they're not 0, you can have one area that actually will really pull your game. I just think as you had mentioned at the start, it's a lot harder. I think it's an exponential graph at some point where it's like the first 80% of a skill is linear, and then from 80 to 100 is just whatever, some form of exponential. And I'm like, well, let's get the 80s around. And yes, you might have one thing that you really have excelled in, whether it's art or programming or it's the core game juice or yada yada. And great, that's good help. But leaving any of these other regions as like near zeros is probably really hurting your game unless you're like really incredibly strong in another area. And again, like how much time does it take to pull up the one? I'm not saying to 100%, like to be world class in that field. I'm saying like a moderate level of like, okay, I did the 1 hour watch YouTube VOD to get an idea of the minimum stuff I should do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need 10 reviews. I should plan around that. Like you didn't need to go through Excel sheets and all this data to get there. It's like, okay, I need to make a play test, a launch test or a launch day event, and I need 10 people. I want more than 10 because some people are going to flake, some people can't. And like, great, that's enough of like, I checked off, I'm going to get traffic from Steam. We didn't even talk about any crazy min-maxing here, or can we time up the content creators to all release their videos on the first day? None of this. Like, just get the 10 reviews.
This is the stuff that's in your wheelhouse. Although reviews might not be in the wheelhouse, but it's like setting up all the different things. You have to go and take your game. You have to have a trailer. You have to have screenshots, you have to have a description and all those different things, and those are things that are within your control. And even if it is your first game and your goal is to get a game on Steam, like going through the practice of creating a bunch of these things and trying to do them with intention can help you build up the muscle that when you come back to more and more games, like I'm doing with the game about a black hole, trying to do them now in a more optimal fashion. Yeah.
Yep.
This is cool. I like seeing the data. I'm disappointed that my game's at the top game, but that we'll get there. We'll get there.
That's what the next game's for,
Yeah.
right? Like,
If that one doesn't work, then there's another game after that. So.
well, then I just have one more data point.
Yeah. Yeah. The Aramis column will have 3 games, which is crazy. Oh, that's so cool. What else? What other things have you kind of thought about or looked about? You know, kind of in the last 6 months of Steam work and different things like this. Is there anything that stands out to you as another interesting finding?
You talked about it in the YouTube video. I mean, like, bundles are really the protection of the long tail for games. Constantly looking for not only old games but new up and coming games to bundle. I've started playing around with one game on does changing the base price of your game after the fact really increase sales when you're not on discount.
Sure.
So far, it looks like not really, but it's like only one game. I start tinkering around with this A/B testing because I'm always curious. It's like, should a game that was $20 just drop down the base to 10 and just decrease the discount? And does that get more sales during non-discounted time? Or is it just better leave the $20 game
Sure.
discount like way more and just make it up for it only during the sales and festivals? And so far, it looks like the answer is don't play around with the base price unless you're doing it right at the start when you still have like the 30 days of visibility from Steam. If you think that the game won't sell well during that initial wave, is probably the only time to touch it. After that, you should just min-max off of your discounting.
Interesting.
Even if it means that the game has to be pulled down like 75% on the discounting. But I have a gut instinct that there is a point of diminishing returns on the discount. You hit a spot where people feel like the game is quote unquote dead and it's not of good enough quality anymore to buy because it's 90% discount.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the spot in which you flip the script and you do pull down your base price and restart at like a 50% discount. Even though the user's paying like the same or less, it's just now they're not seeing this 90% off on a $20 game and going, oh, that's a dead game, that's why it's 90% off.
Yeah. It's something I'm playing with Chess Survivors is running 50% discounts where I was like working my way down to like 70% and like as you showed me there wasn't necessarily any sort of significant difference in conversion rates, and so it's like, well, that's just leaving money on the table, and we'll see in the long run if that does hold out to be true with 50%, because I think I'm going to try to run that for the remainder of the years, everything at 50%, and then we'll have 6 months of data with 50% to see what that conversion rate looks like and stuff like that. So that should be interesting to learn from a long run. Is like, I just defaulted assumed based off of being a Steam user myself that over time you just slowly will step your way down that thing and be attracting new players, but the data doesn't necessarily tease that out, and you can look at that data to understand if you're heading in the right direction or if I was just like blindly following what I thought the right process was. And I'm a data driven person. I've had a career full of doing data analytics and stuff, and like I'm just too focused on making a game to be able to like take that step back and like, oh, is there any data that backs this up? And I could have pulled that data down and made that graph within an hour, and I would have been able to spend an hour and maybe easily make $50 with that decision. That's an interesting lesson I've learned from working with you, is like trying to find those high value, low effort moments to add value to the business.
The translation was one of the ones you covered some of this in your video on your main channel and on the game audit. It's like translations did well, I haven't looked at it exactly, but let's just say it likely had some improvement. I don't think it had a negative impact, let's say that. the bundling is a great ROI. It's like, even if it takes you 10 hours, yet, it ends up being like whatever, $30, $40, $50 an hour of your time when you figure it out. It's like, of course, those are worth it. The same thing for the translation to go back was like, I recommended it just because of the time effort too. Like I had another game that the way that they've created the game, translation would take them like, I don't know, 30, 40 hours to implement. Just because they have images with text in the images themselves. They have some audio stuff that says stuff. Okay, this would be way harder. And for that, I was like, you know what? It's probably not worth it for the amount of copies you're going to sell. Arguably though, on the flip side of that is like, you could still list the Steam pages in the language and just mark as the game is only in English.
Yeah.
And why is, if you filter by English only or whatever your mother tongue is, you're not even seeing it on Steam. You're not even going to see the store page.
Yeah.
Let alone if the game is only in that other language. So it's like Click and Conquer. If it only said it was the store page is only in English, and you filter on, I don't know, Spanish, you'll never see it. Literally, never. Versus if we have the Spanish page there and you go there, then at least the user is able to make the informed decision of, game says English only. Okay, how much text is there? Like, how much do I actually need to be able to...
the text?
Yeah. Or if they just see the trailer and are like, you know what? Looks fun enough, I'll just pull up Google Translate.
Yeah.
Or they have just enough working knowledge of that language that they're able to get
Well,
through.
imagine it happens and you see 5% of your sales are Spanish. Like, oh, maybe I should invest time into that translation at that point when it makes more sense, or not at all. There's also that. There's a lot to do there, and that's definitely something I want to try to do with a game about a black hole, is get translation support in there before we release the demo, so that we're just already kind of getting that as many buckets as possible for the demo.
And
I just did it for Test Survivor, so my brain is already in translation mode.
It's all around the TR function, Godot. I was going to say that content creators too. It's like, okay, even if the game doesn't have a ton of wish lists and doesn't have a ton of like maybe traffic for Korean, it does not mean, like in Test Survivor's case, it's like, great, you've introduced that. So now you can go hit up that audience of content creators that probably would have skipped looking at the game because it did not have that translation, which opens up a whole new like visitor potential traffic. No guarantees. I mean, you could do this work and nothing happens. It's just what do you think the ROI would be, and what can you kind of wager out? Oh, I think I could sell 50 more copies.
Even the expected value on that is really low. Like the even if it's a negative, 5 hours of work for me to make Hexagod and would not have translation files, or is 5 hours for Chess Survivors, and like even if it's $0, my time is maybe $15 to $20 an hour. Or I could take my game dev coaching rate, say it's $50 an hour for my time. That's minus $250 if I do it and nothing positive happens from it. So like that expected value calculation is really easy to see. The downswing isn't that low, and the upswing is, in the long run of a game, maybe somewhere between $0 and $1,000 could be a decent kind of middle band of success for that.
Other things that were interesting is I am intrigued, at least by the marketplace in Steam, and you can take cuts of trade transactions. So like I have a skin, you want to trade the skin to me.
Sure.
I actually get as a dev creator, you get a cut of that. Surf's Up does this, being a free to play game with skins and all this, but it has not amounted to like really anything. But I'm always interested in games that could find a way to push this boundary.
That's the banana game,
especially,
right? That's where that game makes all the money.
Banana game. Is it worth doing it for the level of effort, just for the potential upside? Maybe you have a game that's like a modest success, but this is the pushing factor to make it financially really successful. I I don't know if every game should do this, but is there really any downside to having like DLC supporter packs? Even the games I've looked at that have this, it's like, well, what? How much time did it take you? It's like, well, less than 3 hours. I just literally add the switch statement that adds a gold skin. They get like, I don't know, Rusty's retirement. Let's say they get a gold cape. They get no functionality difference, and you're like, yeah, but it's not a ton of money. Yeah, but it took you 3 hours at $50 an hour. It's 150 cost to do it, and it's like, well, how many copies does that sell over the lifetime of the game?
Right.
And so it's like, okay, if it's selling 50 copies and you're making $3 a copy, you're actually breaking even. You know, I think there are games that should revisit a lot of what they're doing. They think like they've set up their discounts. The game's been out more than a year and it's doing its thing, and they just don't do the homework to revisit opportunities. Whether it's the pricing, whether it's bundling, whether it's okay, you want to consider doing V2. I mean, there's ethics and morals to this, but as like, you could technically make a V2 of any game and say you would like to do it, but it depends on the engagement of your community, and not work on this game at all. You could make the store page and look at the reception of how many people are interested in getting it, and then make the decision.
Yeah.
But I think people don't even go even that far. They won't even make the Discord message of thing like, hey, I think I'm going to make X. Should I or should I not? As like, those just like, no, dead game, forget it. It is what it is. Like, yeah, but if you're going to build another game, would you like to build a game that you already know all the constraints of, and all the gameplay, and you're going to revamp or re-add or extend, and you might already have an audience of like, hey, there's already like 100 to 200 copies probably going to be sold off of the existing. And I'm not saying that's like going to break even on the project, but it de-risks some of how successful the game has to be. So then the question is, how much time are you going to be spending on this other thing?
Yeah.
Listing on like Humble Bundle, like we talked about this. It's like, you don't need to do the bundle sale. You can just list on the store page.
Yeah.
And have your own store. And you, like, it takes 1 to 2 hours, let's say, to set up.
It did over the course of a couple weeks, and we'll see. I've never checked it. I don't know. I think I have to get to like $250, but if I randomly get a $250 check, that'll have been worth it. Like
I can say from Click and Conquer side, I know in the first week of being on that, we had already sold like between 30 and 50 copies. So like it already was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I remember we did support Mac. We added Mac. Even though the game is on Windows and Linux, and you think, there's not that many Mac users, right? And it's already paid back way over the time we spent implementing Mac. I just think that people should,
Are you still there? Oh no, he left. It's just me now. It's just the Aramis podcast. Thornity dropped off. Let me see if he's in Discord. The power went out. Shoot. Well, yeah, I am blown away by Chess Survivors being able to continually sell. And it's been something that for a long time I thought it was just a dead game and I wouldn't keep like adding more to as a product. And now it's something that I am considering like doing more development and doing more work on in the long run. And that's interesting. I'll likely try to do a few more things here and there, even just to take advantage of the visibility round. Trying to re-engage a little bit with that game because it is showing that it has a high conversion rate and that I can put time into it. Although I will tell you the code base is absolutely garbage, very hard to use because it is my first commercial game. And I've grown a lot since then as a dev, even just like changing from snake case to, I do snake case now and I used to do camel case all the time. And so just those little changes there, it's just harder to read my old code. So yeah, it'd be cool to see in the long run what I can do with chess survivors to continually re-engage sales and find those like strategic bundles in the long run to you know make more money. That is ultimately what it's trying to do, is trying to find valuable things for consumers or players to buy that then turns into profitable things for me in the long run. And I think that's one of the cool things I've learned from working with Cordy. There'll be a link down in the description below if you want to reach out and get a consultation with Thornity, also known Corey, also known as GD. I don't know. It was in the bottom corner of something. It'll all be in the description below if you want to work with him. I've had a blast doing it. I'm partnering with him on a game about a black hole, and we're in discussions about what game number 4 would look like for me, and working with him to do it as well. It's likely going to be taking what we did with a game about a black hole and trying to do it faster, more efficiently, and a little bit better for the February Next Fest with like a March release time frame. So all things considered, pretty excited about it. It's been great working with him, and this was an interesting conversation. The data wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, I would say, in the long run. There's maybe a few graphs that I would hope were added, but I still think it is an interesting point of perspective to see, hey, wish lists aren't everything. You do need to try to do all these different parts, and because of that, I think I'm learning more and more every day. So that's it. I've been Aramis. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.